Good evening from the not rightly sure what it could be construed as the hostage diaries on some or the existence pages of wasted space and time dwindling into nothingness and everything in the same breath, regardless of perspective and utilization, which seems to be the key. The emptiness, the void that seems to be my existence, the emptiness. Just got finished watching Midnight in Paris. Very impressive piece, something that I can very much relate to. I've talked about it for years, that sort of scenario of studying these different genres and how they affect it, and they're viewed through modern eyes and that sort of thing. And not to mention the multi-dimensions of ability to understand through art how people thought or see through their eyes, and that mentality in a real well witty done thing. And it echo it's really sad. I mean, when like I said, it's gonna be a sad statement of affairs as my existence, and obviously there was motive, and my I'm worth more dead than alive, or I'm worth more barely alive in a coma than I am living. Because art, like I said, I'm living next door to a huge art school, and so artists, plenty of them. That's so I'm more valuable as a provider of energy and keys. So therefore, I just got to sit here and wait. And the problem I have is that the horrific steps of mismanagement are just absolutely insane. I mean, absolutely off the edge with inadequacies. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, it could have been it's gotten to be so bad. The problem is the prevalent ideology, regardless of the leftist or white leaning, seems to be based upon machines. Everything's all about the machine system. It's a lot. Nobody really wants anything to do with blood. True blood here, the true blood chumps, trying to cloud the water so maybe I'll find something that'll get something done. Castaway, Forrest Gumbo Island, Gilligan, just basically sitting here dying, empty, just empty, completely hollow. And Movable Feast was one of my favorite books. I carried it around for years. And it's the immovable starvation. It's my life. The opposite. How can we screw him the works? That's what it's all about. The immovable starvation would be immovable feast or the immovable starvation. So I walk around in circles and just basically, and it's frustrating because I'm really not getting anything accomplished because I am fickle. I'll admit it. I am a fickle sort. I've got so much raw material that and it's just proving it's once again the masters who are utilizing my influence and therefore must justify themselves as not being that are reliant upon my captivity to utilize these keys and energy, so therefore they're trying to teach me empathy lessons as their slave. See, as the debt bonded slave that I am taught these lessons by massa. These stupid lessons of humility or empathy, just ludicrous amounts of degrees of empathy in order to bribe favor to get their money's worth out of screwing their slave. That's what it's all about. How much can we screw the slave and get our money's worth? That's what it's all about. So empathy and humiliation and, beautician, reverence, anything and everything. So, instead of the movable feast, it's the immovable, the immovable starvation. Because basically, like I said, nothing. I mean, I watched that movie. They're talking, artist contemporaries. You know, I have yet, it's these. I'll admit, the art today is a bit of a sketchy at best. Sketchy at best. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's some quality out there. I just don't. You think, though, I guess people, well, that's the whole part of ignore. And I've got so much could have been there. But what was the problem was, it was because I had been built upon with all the way back from Groucho to the Marx Brothers to Humphrey Bogart to the Bad News Bears to all this stuff that that's like a pet. They didn't want that's not fair. So that kind of turned away. So my art was therefore invalidated. It's like the aristocracy trying to perform art. Whereas I'm sitting in school where it's an aristocracy formed art who still ignores it because they want to become part of the Kool-Aid hip crowd. It's all. Or the funny part is, another one of the nomenclatures of what's going on is we're in a historically gorgeous, architecturally old area. And, old architecture, and yet it's always the new kids on the block, the right stuff sort of mentality, hanging tough. That means, it's seemingly there. But although, like I said, it is through extreme circumstance of inability to interact competently within the various fissures and groups and things, because, I just couldn't get anything done. And that all goes back to the captivity, which seems to be the name of the game, because they built so much onto me. Instead of, they wanted to expand my, screw how much they were getting out, they wanted extreme expansion on the amount that they were getting from me. So, and this is all derived from various folks, most notably debt bondage diplomas, which are done. There's no contract. This is all done in shadow loan sharking. Basically, there's no, this is all done in loan sharking shadow schemes, because that way it's easier to exploit. What they got is just a justification. And the math, they can really get the math. That's where we get into the bypass residual claimants. It's all about lean wells. That's what the whole scheme is about. That's why I was extremely hammered down and just massacred, so they could set up these schemes against me, because they had to. It's the TIIT, flip-flop, identity thief to TI, that sort of mentality, by utilizing the law as energy and history. Because history is part of my strength. That's where my strength comes from, is history. And so therefore they were going to turn that against me, and the law. So they had to turn it against me to make their case stronger. Therefore now that's pressing gravity upon me. But it's the spirit or nature of the law of exploitation, which is, it's a grindhouse 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We're talking about $100,000 degree with my sister, and and the thing is, we don't even I don't even have privy to look at the amount of money it is, but it's gone to be to where it is. They're probably making billions and billions and billions of dollars, because what it is it's these clone factories. They're producing a bunch of plastic clones of it. So whereas that's where the shadow games becomes real relevant, because that way they can exploit it any way they see fit. The proper schematics are then deviated. If that's the whole thing about, it's one of those wink and nudge sort of, tell your buddy, sort of plug into that. But I don't exactly know. And it's obviously a known commodity in certain circles. And I'd like to know who knows what and how much. I honestly want to figure that out. And obviously in the oil communities, it was trying to be hidden as energy, but it's one way to justify it. But what's gone on is it's gone so far overboard that the global economy is on the verge of collapse. But they don't care. What they do realize is we screwed up by allowing this to go on. See, there are certain factions that are just allowing this to happen. So all these other factions are just plugging into me, their schemes, therefore generating power that generates assets, and it's just gotten to be spiraled off into so many different directions. But it seems to be all based upon clones, whereas the debt is held by one person who is a member of a group, and I am one person. But then they spiral off all these clones on all these different angles and utilize the same energy. Then there are games and ranks built upon that. So there are schemes built upon the principles of this one transaction. Plus, not to mention all these other little things. And then it's the residual claimant bypass. Whereas, a minute thing such as when I got evicted from an apartment in New Orleans and probably is still a few $100s or something like that, that's probably worth $50 million because it never gets paid back, but it sets up the precedence. That's an open door. That's what they would call an unlimited wealth capacity. And I was wondering about the schematics of it, if there's an actuality to it. I'd like to see the schematics eventually and figure all that out. I doubt I'd ever be privy to that, or because it would be a massive fraud Ponzi scheme sort of mentality if it ever went on. So my Southeastern Lions degree, the pride, that's my, is then sold for parts because they're going to get their money's worth. But it's not done in actual, that's why it's used with clean handlers. The clean handlers provide their own cash. They just allow me to be ravaged in many, many fashions. That's where I'm just thrown out into the public to be screwed any which way but loose, any which way you can, and therefore stabbed and speared and screwed and all sorts of plugs, therefore exposed. But I am not. I'm handled I'm mishandled because I should be an independent entity. But I'm unable to do that. That's why I've been beat down. That was motive for my beat down for so long. That's why I am contained within this certain parameters to facilitate these energy, this free energy, solar, my ass, SunTrust. It's a scam. Like all. So, you can go on any number of things, trademarks. So we're probably attached. I'm sure we're attached into Chef Boyardee and Hebrew National somehow. But it's all about my family being controlled by certain factions, us being under control or under the authority of these privileges based upon the shadow game, loan sharking mentality, the repo thing sort of mentality. Therefore, there are factions that are utilizing, acting in lieu of, or instead of, that are doing these secret little missions, these black ops sort of missions as far as loan sharks, black op loan shark sort of things that are manipulating because of international assets, especially. That gives them a little bit of leeway and exploitation, because the stupid part, the really, really dumb part is the people in New York and LA really aren't very bright. They're fighting me from trying to free them. They are they don't even understand it, but the controlling mechanism, I guess they like their programming, or their, I don't know, doesn't seem, but see, when I am programmed in a certain way, it affects a network. Same with my sister. My sister was built as a certain type of network to program. So because I am under control of another, my network is therefore under control of other entities who are figured out ways to chop, shop, and steer and, butcher all these different network parts for parts. Chop shop. So it really is my sister. She programs a whole different sector. But what they've done is they've turned us against each other. That's the Louis Marx Toys Rock'em Sock'em Robots. And they're trying to alienate us from our power source, the original power source we should have had, but we got hijacked way back when and crashed. Crash landed like Area 51 in Roswell or something. Aliens abducted, put under the anesthetic. So, I'm trying to escape, but nobody seems to want to help me. Wouldn't take that much. I just want to put everything on paper and get everything clear and, but it's the shadow games allows for the Black Ops army of loan sharking that goes on in a bunch of different vehicles in a lot of different ways. So therefore, I am stuck in this spiraling amalgamation. That's why. See, that's another reason they had to alienate me. The Roughnecks and the Wildcatters were helping to alienate me. So there were some Roughnecks and Wildcatters who were affiliated with the arts, the cool hip crowd. And the kids don't really understand it, what a trend. And so it all started because they had to alienate me to protect their energy scams that they had plugged into me, the exploitation. So it's this beat down constantly protects these scams. Not to mention time alienate, it's the divide and conquer and discredit and desecrate. That's what time is doing now. So that's what's been going on. So it's the Columbia bum showing sort of mentality because I'm kept on such a short leash. Therefore, I can't really associate with competent people because I am unable to, and so therefore my life is a waste, and therefore it's not, literally I can't go to the right parties to meet the right people where I might be able to put together deals where I might be able to escape. That's all motive in my estimation. And therefore it's just, I mean, it really is, they butchered us pretty darn good. And but they had, I don't exactly know to what degree energy plays in this, or cognizant, conscious, if there's a actual conscious effort, or if it's just energy itself, the flow of energy, as far as me as being a giver. I give a lot. I mean, I am an abundant source, and people realize that. I'm a very, very highly credible, abundant source, giving off a lot of free energy. And so people are protecting that free energy. And so I'm surrounded, but I'm not able to interact. It's just surrounded by, if I ever try to do that's why I'm on this immovable starvation diet. The starvation, hunger pains from my empty plate of nothing to do, just the wasted existence, and kept in plain sight, yet still it's a real gray area of bondage captivity. I mean, all these angles of exploitation, and it all deals with, it's seen as wells or whatever it might be. It would all be, I mean, it really could be put together. Money is the key to all of this, and that's why I am not allowed money or competent resources. Or, see, money provides me the opportunity to turn all of this coincidence into manufacture tangible proof. And if I manufacture tangible proof, that's dangerous to some. And they have health care, which I provide, so therefore that's why, see, we provide health care insurance and health care, which is negative reinforcement to the people that are screwing us. So therefore, we have to, it's like the health care, I'm not allowed health care, good health care. So I am the low priority, that's another reason for that low priority hack, is so it's more pressure. What they're doing is just pressure and pressure, pressing me down, burying my body deeper into the well so they can drill me from a different angle, that sort of thing. It's always figuring different ways to drill me and exploit it, because they wanted to screw me. They did not. They wanted the purple haze, the Kurt Cobain. They wanted to screw. They did not want to build a bridge. They could have built a global empire. Louisiana really easily could be one of the most powerful places in the world. Easily. With right along, Texas and Louisiana could be as big as New England. It could be as big, it really could. Or California. But instead, they wanted slaves. They wanted to use slavery. That's what they did. So they ended up using slavery. So now Louisiana are a bunch of, I mean, it's free range slaves, but for the most part, they're all, they did nothing. So I am definitely a slave. I mean, kept on it's modern engineered slavery, but that's basically what it is. So they didn't want to build an empire because I don't understand why. I'll never understand that. It's bad. Fear had to have been. They had to have been afraid. It had to have been probably New York, my estimation. had to be, because why is California allowed to develop so easily? Why is Texas allowed to grow so big, but Louisiana, because options. See, because of the global connections that we should have, I'm not allowed to use my options. Therefore, that's another thing that I'm desecrated, humiliated, to where I have no options at all. That's an immovable starvation rather than the movable feast, because no options at all. Because I actually have global options, because they got to beat down the slave to brainwash. That's brainwash. It's brainwashing 101, Manchurian Candidate style. So Louisiana was kept as slaves. Jews, that's like the Jews in Israel or in Egypt, in my estimation, were under the control of Pharaoh, and can't can't get free, because basically only jobs in Louisiana right now happen to be the petrochemical. That's about it. I mean, for the most part, there's some real irrelevant travel and tourism to a degree, but the real only meaty jobs are petrochemical or chemical or manufacture, to a degree. There's no real other. They never developed computer. They never developed biotechnology. They really didn't do anything else. And the reason why is probably because there was no leadership, because I've been under the control of about 20 years. So we've been under a program driven for 20 years. So obviously those that are benefiting for our success, well, what they want is, like I said the other night, they want to chop the head off, and they want the Latin American meat. It's what they really want. They want easy, tenderized steaks and burgers. They want to be able to go and swoop up and easily, because they don't want they worship competition, but they hate competition that they can't control. They like control. It's really an oxymoron, because we're talking about really a controlled environment with the free chaos within certain realms, but they hate real competition for the most part. That's why it's print tons of cash. So we're stuck here. I can't prove all of this. I'd like to. Money validates a lot of it, and it basically allows me to investigate and figure all this out, but I am unable to, because I'm surrounded. I am an immovable starvation, unable to accomplish anything. I honestly think it's because they really didn't want any competition for the machines. The machines are taking over the world. It's the Animal House machines right now, and I think it's going to lead to Big Brother eventually, honestly. And a totalitarian sort of state. I think it's going to spin to that based on debt bondage, is my estimation. Because debt is going to be the biggest issue in the world. And the debt in the U.S. and the debt in the world economy probably is derived from us being mismanaged. That's the only way you can control certain factions, when you don't have the right to control those factions. When all you have is cash and you don't have the right, when you usurp the right, so you're doing it under nefarious means, the only way you potentially can control the assets that you've seized, taken over, and manipulated. See, that's the problem. They've created so much or what they've done is not really create, they've just expanded the reach, that by adding on network hacks, they've just plugged more and more into it. They haven't really created a lot. They've just plugged more and more, and I'm talking on the global scale here. So all they've been doing is plugging on more and more global networks. The only way they can legitimately control that is through the machine. Makes it easier, because the aristocracy needs to be killed. They got to get rid of the aristocracy, because that's resistance there. They don't believe in the machine. That's what they're thinking right now. What they've got to do is they want the political machine and debt. Debt is a great way to control it, in my estimation, or to prove who is in authority, because of the nefarious nature that the power was acquired, and the expensive acquisition. It's like I said, they just kept plugging in more and more networks built based upon Louisiana as a whole, based upon these small little bitty loans that were, because we were kept as pets, basically, in order to be $1 billion pets, but we're not allowed access to any of that sort of mentality, theoretically speaking, of course. So not rightly sure what to do other than keep on espousing these crazy, crazy notions. And hopefully one of these days I'll have a movable feast where I can actually do something. But I really doubt, I mean, it's beyond. And see, when somebody screws up as bad as Savannah and Aspen have done, they've got to get a beautician because they got a lot vested in it. So then, of course, I pay for it because of the debt I owe. So I got to pay. That's why Aspen screwed up bad. It's like a downward spiral that I keep paying and gets worse and worse and worse because they screw me. Because they don't want to pay, they don't want to play. They just want to screw me. That's all it's about. So then I got to pay for them to screw me because I am a slave. Literally a beautician slave. That's what I am. I'm a beautician slave. One of the many factions of my slavery is beautician for those that screw me because they don't want, they don't want to gamble that I might escape. See, if they would have come in and invited me to parties and said, we know who you are, obviously. You're a valuable commodity. We're going to screw you then. We're going to lock you in a cage, steal your wallet, and screw you. And then we're going to make us pretty because we're your slave master. We're the master, so you got to make us pretty as a slave. That's my job now, as my slave beautician. That's another one of those bastard horrific mismanagements and less than empathy. While in the meantime, I'm being empathetic to their disease that's haunting them right now, and they're trying to cure the disease at my expense. That's something else. I mean, I really pay it off. I am the most, they have learned ways to screw me and make more money off me while I sit in a cage and rot to death. Literally. I mean, that's what's going on. That's basically what I've been for.